For week 3 on my stitch journal, I really just wanted to do some beautiful circles, and this was a new addition. I wasn't going to put this on, but because I'd been working with this lovely green flannel on the moth that I posted on Sunday, I thought it would be a nice addition. So I'm using the blue pearl cotton off week 1. It's quite a thick thread, and I've got a crewel needle, which is a biggish eye but a sharp point. I'm keeping this piece of ripped up linen on top, and then I was thinking, should I put my circle in the middle? Should I put it off to one side? I've decided to do it at the bottom. And really, it's your own design idea as to what you do, because any way you want to do it is right for you. But I'm just going to start by picking this up in my hand, and I'm going to use the running stitch to actually stitch this circle on. And you could pin it if you want. I'm just not bothered about pinning, I think. But I'm going to take quite small stitches, quite small bites out of the edge of this, and I'm going to go all the way around this circle. And to cut the circle out, I just drew round one of my little jars. So the first thing is that I'm going to get this circle, and just turn your work round as you need to. You don't have to keep it the same way round all the time. It has to be comfortable to stitch. I'm going to work all my way around here first, and I'm not going to load the needle, because doing a circle, if I load it, I'll be more in a straight line, and I don't want my circle to have angles. I definitely want to preserve the circle. I'm going to keep the same, just a few millimeters, about 1/8 of an inch in from the edge. And I'm going to add a couple of different variations of stitching and a new stitch, I think. Unless I change my mind as the little piece gets stitched. But I have my idea in my head, but whether it actually ends up like that, your guess is as good as mine sometimes. I'm trying to make all my stitches nice and even. And as I come to the beginning, what I'm looking for is, I don't want to end with so big a gap that there's not room for another stitch, but I don't want to end up so near that it looks uneven. So I've just got in my mind that I need to end on just enough of the stitch. So actually that to me isn't going to end just well. So I'll show you, and then I'll take it back and show you what I'll do. So now if I took the same size stitch, I'm going to end up here, which I don't like. So I'm just going to pull that back to show you that it's not really a problem. So here I've maybe got a wider gap, and I can do something about it. So I'll take it back to there, make sure I'm not gathering anything up, and rethread my needle. And now I'm just going to purposely take a smaller stitch, but just by the amount that you're not going to really notice, so that as I come up to there, I'm going to have room just to get that extra stitch in. And just by doing that, I can now go down, and I end up not with too big a gap and not with too few a gap. And I'm actually going to do around the outside as well. So this is just layering up the stitches, and I'm still going to take quite small stitches. I'm going to go all the way around. I've been enjoying reading all of your comments about the little paint cloth one. I do love it, and I've heard people doing some lovely things with their different fabrics if they don't have paint cloths. I just think that stitching is so accessible, because nearly everybody can get hold of some old cloth. At least I think everybody can. Like we've all got something old that's, or it's got a mark on and it's not useful anymore, or children's clothes that have been grown out of and are not good enough to send to charity or give to a friend. All of those can be cut up and used in your stitching practice. And even though I call it practice, I think what I really like is that if I'm trying to do something new, I don't like to just practice something to no end. I like to be able to make something with it. So as in doing this little stitch journal, it is practicing the stitches, especially for newcomers who are new to stitching. But at least at the end of it, you're going to have something nice. You're going to have something you can do something with, rather than just a bit of cloth that you think is not useful for anything. And get one more on, I think. And there it goes, and down I go. Turn it over, and because I know now I've got those layers there, I can just go through the back and do a little back stitch to secure it. So we're already doing a design, and I just want to be able to bring in some little variation, and I really like this dark blue. I thought this would be lovely because it's a complementary colour, and I don't use this colour very often, but I do love it. So I'm going to take some of this variegated orange, and what I'd like to do now is what's called a whipped running stitch, and I really love whipped stitches. I whip chain stitches, running stitches, you name it, I would definitely whip it round. And a whipped stitch just means that you're not going underneath the cloth with your needle. Your needle is staying on top of the cloth all the time, but you're going underneath the stitch. And you can go whichever way round you like, whichever way is comfortable for you to go. I'm going to go in from the top and underneath. The other thing is, if you've got a point on your needle, which I have, and you feel that you're catching the fabric, you can go eye first if you feel that's more comfortable. It doesn't really matter as long as you're not picking up any of your underneath cloth. If I go around, you see we've got a lovely little diagonal line there now, but I carry on round with every stitch, and there's just a lovely, almost like a dot and dash effect, which I think is very beautiful. So we're still really just on a running stitch, but it can be so much more if you want it to be. So every stitch, this is a reason to have tried to have made your running stitches even, and it doesn't matter how big or small they are. They can be great big ones, they can be little ones, as long as they're a little bit even, so that when you're whipping it round you get the even dot and dash. See, I think I'm already changing my mind now because I like this so much. I think I'm going to do another set. You're pulling it nice and snug without it being loose, but you don't want to tighten anything up. It just should come to a natural stop as you're pulling your needle through. Definitely a variegated thread's nice to use on here, but it doesn't have to be. And there's a big difference on doing a thick thread or a thin thread. You could experiment with the thickness of thread you're using, not only for the running stitch but also for the whipping stitch. These two are of a similar weight. And as I come back round to the beginning, you can see that I started halfway in the first running stitch, and that was because that's the way that the stitch comes through. So if I was going to do that like that, I'm set up for that stitch, but because that's the end, I'm just going to take my thread down underneath that running stitch. And I think that's so pretty. And I really like that. I'm actually going to do another. This time I'm going to do the running stitch in the orange. And I'm going to take it round again because that's just too nice not to do again. So I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to do the running stitch in orange and I'll whip it in the blue. So I'll go around yet again. I'll just end up with no room for what I thought I was going to do. But it's just the way things go sometimes. You get sidetracked onto something else that's inspired you to do it. I'm not trying to line up my stitches with the one before, with this row. I'm still just doing one stitch at a time and just try to keep them beautifully even. And if you feel they're not even, embrace that, go with that. It'll be fine. I'm coming round to the beginning again, so I'm just going to try and decide whether I'll get, I think I will, just do some smaller little gaps to make sure I can get my last stitch on, and there it is. So I'll come up at the top again. I'll come up underneath the middle of one of the running stitches, and this time I'll do exactly the same, whip from the outside in, and I'll go all the way around. You can see the difference, even though I've used the same two colours and the same exact thing. The difference being that the little stitches are the straight stitches and the diagonal ones are just curvy and longer, and so this is going to look more orange on here and this one will look more blue. And in that way you can give subtle variation into whatever you're stitching. This is a particularly good stitch for doing that. It makes lovely edges, it makes lovely straight lines if you want to do it straight, and a sort of wiggly straight, but it's a way of doing beautiful lines. And I'll take my needle down underneath the starting running stitch. Very satisfying. I finished that off because I'm not sure what I like to do next. I'm just going to run this thread under a couple of the stitches on the back and that'll secure it, and snip it off. What I wanted to use is this bit of rust dyed cloth, and I think I do want quite a good circle. I think I'm just going to do it freehand. But by all means use something to draw around. But I'm quite happy to have a wonky circle. I think I'll have cut out a wonky one. Actually, I think I'm going with that. I'll just pin that on for the moment. I'm going to stick with the orange and blue and green. And I think I'll use 3 strands, and I'll pull them all out individually because they lie better that way. That's 2 there actually, so I'll separate them up. Here's the next one. There's 3 all together. So if you separate the threads and then recombine them, the stranded cottons do lie better. I know it's tempting just to split them down, but it's worth getting the individual strands out separately. I use the same needle. I'm going to carry the theme of circles on by stitching the edge of this one in exactly the same way as I did with that, but it's a darker colour and it's now the stranded cotton, because I'm going to be doing something different along the spaces that are left. Actually, I think I'm more likely to do a wobbly circle than a perfect circle. I like the wobbly organic shapes. Makes me think of bracket mushrooms and things like that, bracket fungi. The way that they have those lovely wavy edges and the many stripy colours. I think that's what I'm thinking about when I'm going to be doing the next bit. I'll use the balance of the orange pearl, and again I'm whipping in from the outside. Oh, I've just had a thought. Let me just see. Got another idea. I'm going to whip across into the inner layer and just see what that looks like. Now, I didn't line the stitches up, so it might not work, but at the moment, look at that, that's quite beautiful. And I'm just whipping across, down onto the outside and up onto the top. If it starts not to line up, like here, I'll have a think about what I'm going to do. It's made a beautiful pattern. I really like that. I'm just going to miss that one out and come to here. It's not bothering me. And up. If I'd thought about it early enough, I suppose I could have made sure I had an equal amount to go up and down through. But I only just thought about it, so I just go with the flow. And of course it might not join up. Oh, I think it will. I could be lucky. Could be lucky. Miss that one out. Go down to here. Up to that one. And hooray! Down to that one. And what a different effect that has made there. But it's the same procedure. And you can see the little one I skipped here and there, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with skipping a stitch. Now I wanted to introduce a new stitch that I'm wanting to fill in these side spaces with, and I still would like to do a variegated thread. Going to do this one because it actually has the same sort of colours in, so I'm going to change to this pearl. So at the moment I have a lot of negative space here, and so I wanted to introduce another stitch, and that's going to be blanket stitch. I'm going to come up between here. So I'm actually going to start by going around this piece here. Blanket stitch is just sort of, it's three-cornered. You've got the corner where your thread comes out, and then if you imagine a little square, you go diagonally across and pick up a little stitch like that. Now if you're doing it on a blanket, you probably want it to be measured and accurate, but for this type of stitching, a more loose interpretation is really nice. I'm going to do a very regular stitch around here to start off with. So at the moment, what I've ended up with is a loop, and my working thread is coming through that loop. And when you pull it, you've anchored the loop down, and you're in the position to start the next loop along. So if I go along the same distance again, and I take that little bite of cloth, and I'm aiming for it to be about the same, and the thread goes behind your needle, so that if you hold on to here, it'll stop you pulling your thread up into with the needle, which sometimes happens. You just hold on to your thread there, so that when you pull, just keep your thread going through nicely And if you keep pulling upwards, you get the little loop anchored down, and you get these lovely little curves, little crescents that come along. And you could do this in a straight line like that. It's almost going straight now. But I'm going to curve them in, so I'm going to pretend that each little spoke is sort of coming out from the middle of the circle, and so that'll give me the angle that I need to be at, because if I keep doing them straight, they're going to go a bit wonky. I'm going to go around the back of my needle, hold that one down there and pull through. And at the moment they're all being quite regular. Think of where the middle of my circle is and the spoke of the wheel is. Take the little bite and pull through. And variegated thread gets shown up really nicely on this. The loop goes around. In fact, I can show you the loop. There's the loop going around, so my needle is going to come up inside the loop. There's my little bite of the stitch coming. Hold on to this. And so it gets easy to just keep your stitches coming so they're going to look nicely as they go around the edge of your circle. Now they don't have to be this regular, but if you're just learning how to do the stitch, it's nice to be able to learn how to do it regular, and then you can just go off piste and do what the heck you like. I'm making sure that these are staying just nice little stitches, about 1/4 of an inch wide and about 1/4 of an inch long. And I wouldn't normally be putting my needle in through like that, but that's more just to show you how you can get into a habit of just seeing where your stitch wants to go. And pretty soon, once you have a library of some stitches that you can go back to, you don't need very many before you can do all sorts of things. And you're trying to take the same a little bite of fabric so that the top line and the bottom line are the same. And if they're not, well, you're being more arty right from the beginning. And if they are, once you've got them going, you'll be able to change it up as you wish. But you can see already how much the stitches have changed in angle. So I don't have to keep going there. I can do the stitch downwards as well. It is just the same stitch, just holding it a different way, and it might be, you might think it's more comfortable. So now I'm going to let the working thread come under my thumb. I'm still going to line my stitch up with the centre of the circle to get that angle. I'll take the little bite of material and I just push my needle downwards instead. And there's the same stitch. It's just, I suppose I'm doing it upside down, but it really is just, oh, I can hear Boo. She's deciding to make a noise. You may find that you want to hold your cloth a different way. It doesn't matter how you hold your cloth. Pull your working yarn away from the loop and you'll find that it tightens onto the cloth without pulling yourself in a tight mess. I'm going to continue coming round, even though I'm right at the bottom of my page. As long as I'm inside from that blue line, I know that I'm on the page that I won't get sewn into the seam. I'm almost all the way back. This is a beautiful thread to work with. I'm absolutely loving it. Now I don't want to go between them. So this is where I'm going to finish this piece off. So I'm going to just take it down. I think what I wanted to do is come around this with another running stitch in this colour. And I'm going to carry on with the blanket stitch. This time I'm going to come up, I'm keeping the same thread. I'm going to do it the opposite way. So I'm going to do it with the legs facing outwards. And this time, although I'm going to try and keep the gap the same, I'm going to do whatever I feel like about the legs. So this time I'm coming down, and as long as I want this gap to be the same if I can, other than that I'm going to take sometimes long stitches, sometimes short stitches. Sometimes they're going to be angled one way, sometimes they're going to be angled another way. And you can see that there's going to be a hugely different effect by doing that. And so I'm just going to go around here again. So to finish off blanket stitch, when you're coming to the end, when you're needing to put another thread on, you do the last stitch that you could do, and you're going to go back in right where this working thread came out, but on the other side of the loop, so that the loop gets tied down, and you can see it getting pulled in there. And to start again, I come up inside the loop where my last thread came up. So I'm coming up there, right in the corner of that loop. And then it'll be like I'd never had to finish one off. So I'll keep going. And I've just decided, I was thinking, what am I going to do to fill this corner up? And I've decided to just make the blanket stitch really big. So I'm going to come right the way down to here. And again. So I love these frayed threads here. I'm going to come right the way down there, over the top of those frayed threads. I'm just going to make sure that I do not pull my background fabric too much, because that's quite a long stitch. I'll just make sure that you're nicely stretched out. And I'll angle that one down. So I'm just, instead of finishing that there, I'm actually going to finish that with a little leg that goes off to the end. I've carried on and done that piece of blanket stitch, but now I'm just going to running stitch around there like I've done the other ones. So I'm keeping with the same thread because I'm really liking the effect of all this greeny peach. I'm coming right to the edge of where I know my page is. I want to fill this whole piece in with the blanket stitch in this colour because I'm really enjoying the shapes of it. And I did those two back to back, and I'm going to do the next piece round, which will only go to there, in the same way round as this. But what I'm going to try and do is make the bar that goes along the top, like this bar here, I'm going to make it go along the bottom of the legs, so I'll get sort of a wobbly circle or a wobbly line. And so again, I'm not really bothered about where the legs are going as much. but I am going to try and make that line go along there. So I'm just going to audition it by, instead of just pretending and taking it up, which is fine as well, but I'm just going to audition where that line goes, and if I hold it there, it means I can bring my needle up along that line and know that when I pull through, the line is going to close those little boxes off. Show you this way around. So on here, it's going to go this way. So I'm going to go around like this. Going to look at where that thread's going to be and take another one. That one goes up quite a lot. I'm going to go up quite a lot. And in this way, I'm going to go around and make another row. I'm going to come to there. Put the line on so I can see where it wants to go. Put my needle up to the thread. I can do that again for the next one. And I'm going to end that one there. And I don't want to just go down here. I'd really like to end it there and make that stitch go to the end of there. Definitely haven't got a circle anymore. Getting a wobbly line, which I really like. And I'm going to carry on and I'm going to do that whole piece exactly the same, but every time I come back I'm going to do a running stitch for this curve. I could definitely do lines of different colours. I think that would look really nice, but I feel I'm really enjoying this variegated green. And one stitch repeated a lot has a lot of simplicity and charm, and I don't know, there's something about the repetition that is really wonderful. To angle that one in, and then I'll come up and do this little bit of running stitch. And I'm just going to finish this corner, and then I'll come down to this bit and fill this bit in with running stitch. I had been intending to fill these in with spirals, but because I've stitched so extensively everywhere else, I feel the whole little square needs the breathing space of the empty circles, and so I'm leaving those empty. But the reason I did these back to back, this row and this row, was for a particular reason. I've actually got this really dark, thick cotton, and I feel that's what I would like to use. I want the contrast of the thread. So I'm going to come up here. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to interlace the backs of both of these rows of blanket stitch in the same way that I interlaced the rows of running stitch here. So I'm going to go from the middle outwards on each side, missing a stitch out every time. So from the middle underneath that one, I miss that one out, go from the middle underneath that one. And you don't have to count them, it's more about making the interlacing look even. So wherever your needle lands up is perfectly fine. It might miss a stitch, it might, if you've got a big stitch, it might not miss any at all. I really like the way that's looking. I like the contrast in the size of the thread too. You could do that with sort of 2 sets of 6 strands in a big needle. Look, that one I think needs to go in there instead, so I'm going to take that one back, and that'll actually be 2 missed out. They must be a bit smaller. Thing is, you're not going through the fabric at the back, so if you do feel that you need to go through a different blanket stitch, it's just a matter of taking your needle back through. I'll go down here. Oh, I like that a lot. It almost looks like a braid. I'll come up here and do the same of this little piece. I would definitely call this interlacing rather than whipping, because it's going through two different pieces of stitching rather than just around one. I think I'm happy to say that that little stitching is finished. Now we've done another piece of applique with these two pieces of material going on, carried on the running stitch, but this time we've got it whipped. So that's a totally different effect than normal running stitch. And I've introduced blanket stitch too, in a more regular effect and irregular too. And they'll definitely be coming up again. And then at the end we've got interlacing. So interlaced running stitch and interlaced blanket stitch. I did intend to put another circle on, but it didn't happen. I've got my little piece of stitching here, and the next morning when I looked at it, I actually did want to add another little circle, but all I've done is go and stitch a button onto it, not quite in the centre. Because I just felt as if it needed that extra little bit, and I got a little pearl button, little mother of pearl button, but I've actually used the back of it because I like the colours, and so I've stitched the button on upside down, just off centre. So I hope you'll enjoy doing some of that type of stitching. Really hope you enjoy doing your whipped running stitch just like I do. I just think it's so nice. And experiment with the different thicknesses. It can be really lacy if you just use one or two strands of a stranded cotton, and it looks like a braid if you use the really thick thread, like I used that thick pearl around there. It's almost like a braid effect. And I just thought I'd let you know that I'm actually working on the birds at the moment, and I've filmed parts of it already, so I think that's probably what's going to be coming on Sunday, but I don't think I'll have it finished, so it might be a part 1 and a part 2. And I keep forgetting to show you the little bits and pieces I made at Christmas, and also Naomi made me something lovely, so I'll maybe add that on to Sundays as well, because if I don't get them added on soon, there'll be no point. And I did film the little tiny bits as I was doing things. I'm saying it's going to be the best. It might well not be. I feel as if there's lots of things going on at the moment. So yeah, and it's been snowing today, and it's sleeting now. So it's really dark outside. I've got the light on, I've got my needlework light on, and yeah, it's freezing cold, and I'm happy I'm sitting in stitching. So I hope you're warm if you're in the northern hemisphere and you've got this really dreadful cold snap at the moment. And if you're down in the southern hemisphere, I hope you're enjoying your summer, because it seems like a long time till it'll be coming round this end. And I'm going to put a video in at the end that I think might be interesting, so I hope you watch the video that I'll link it right at the very end. With that, I'm just going to say thanks very much. Thanks for all your comments and your messages and everything else, and I do appreciate them all. And I will see you on Sunday, and fingers crossed it'll be something to do with the birds. Thanks. Bye from Marian's World.